Hey there, it's Dr. Justin Marchegiani. Today's video is going to be part 3 in our intermittent fasting series. It's going to be intermittent fasting and females. Again, we've done one just on intermittent fasting mistakes. We've done it on intermittent fasting and hypothyroidism. So make sure you click on screen to find where those videos pop up, and make sure you watch those videos too if you haven't. So let's dig in. Intermittent fasting for women. Now, why are women so special in this area? Well, primarily, their hormones are fluctuating throughout the month, which makes them a little bit more sensitive and a little bit more, I should say, environmental stressors can have an impact on their hormones differently than men. Where men's kind of like a foghorn, women are kind of like this symphony that happens throughout the month. So it's easier to make the one part of the symphony be off, and then it kind of sounds like noise, where that straight foghorn's pretty hard to mess up. So let's dig in. So first off, we have what's called the HPG axis. That stands for the hypothalamus, the upper part of the brain here, the pituitary, which is just below the hypothalamus, and then we have G as the gonadal axis. So we have let's say our hypothalamus is right here, HP. We have the pituitary right below, which sends a signal here, right? So we have GnRH, which goes to our pituitary. Let's say pituitary's here. Hypothalamus is above. So we have GnRH, that's gonadotropic releasing hormone. Then the pituitary releases LH and FSH, which is luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormone, which talk to the follicle, which creates the egg, right? Essentially, that's where the egg comes from. And then the LH has major impact on progesterone levels regarding the female hormone. So FSH growing the egg, thus creating estrogen. LH has major effects on the progesterone. So you can see this is the ovaries down here. Here's the actual ovary here. This is obviously the uterus and the cervix and such. So this feedback loop, FSH, helps grow the eggs here. The egg then gets released and goes into the fallopian tube and then obviously into the uterus. LH has major effects on progesterone. So that's really important to kind of get that feedback loop down. Now, fasting as going long periods of time without food can have an effect on kisspeptin. And kisspeptin is this neuropeptide that has effects on the feedback loop. Kisspeptin is higher in females anyway, and kisspeptin will drop during fasting. So guess what that does to this feedback loop? This can actually decrease LH and FSH, which then have a decreased effect on the female hormones. Not good. What it can do is it actually can increase your estrogen level. So let's back this up. If we have decreased kisspeptin, that can increase insulin, right? Insulin can then drive other issues, right? Insulin resistance is kind of a problem. Increase ghrelin, which makes you more hungry. You think about ghrelin as like you're growling, you're hungry, you're growling. And then leptin signals energy balance. So if we have less energy, our leptin's lower, which kind of makes you more hungry. The more energy you have, the higher leptin is, right? Leptin and satiation go hand in hand. So low leptin means you're not satiated enough. You don't have enough energy, which means you're growling. Your ghrelin's really high because you're hungry. Now that can throw off estrogen. That can increase your estrogen levels. And what this is doing is it's throwing off your female hormone. So if we start to have more insulin, that can create insulin resistance issues, which can create stress on the blood sugar because the blood sugar is going up and down, right? Again, if you're fasting, it's going to kind of be low, but what's going to happen is it's going to make your insulin pop up when you start to eat again. When you start to eat again, you're going to have blood sugar swings, and when your blood sugar drops, that creates more adrenaline and cortisol. Again, estrogen is going to throw off the progesterone to estrogen balance. We typically have way more progesterone than estrogen. But what starts to happen is this starts to creep up and gets a little bit more in relationship to the two. And that starts to create this thing known as estrogen dominance. And that starts to throw off your female hormones. So backing up here, fasting, what does it do? It increases kisspeptin, or it decreases kisspeptin. So increased fasting decreases kisspeptin. What does kisspeptin do? It has effects on disrupting this feedback loop. So it's going to have effects on this feedback loop. It's going to take this GnRH up here, it's going to throw it off, which is going to have negative effects over here with the LH and FSH as well. And that's going to throw off our female cycle. So fasting decreases kisspeptin. Decreased kisspeptin throws off that GnRH, LH, FSH feedback loop, which will start to throw off the female hormones. All right, it does it. Insulin goes up, estrogen starts to go up. Estrogen dominance, lower progesterone. Ghrelin goes up, you're growling because you're hungry, and leptin goes down because your energy balance, your energy is lower. So fasting, increased estrogen. This is a feedback hormone here. That drops down, and of course, kisspeptin goes down as well. And women have more kisspeptin than men, so they're more sensitive to that. Now let's look at the female cycle. So here's a typical female cycle. Ovulation typically happens between days 13 and 15, where kind of estrogen drops a bit and progesterone rises. This is where ovulation happens. But you can see here, estrogen predominates in the first half of the cycle, progesterone in the second half of the cycle, and the drop in hormones signal menstruation or your menses. This is where your period happens. When you're stressed, what can happen is the more you're stressed, the more your blood sugar is going up and down, your progesterone can go downstream to cortisol to deal with inflammation, to deal with blood sugar issues. So your progesterone can fall out early. And this is the gap we see with the progesterone falling out early. And this can create a lot of the PMS may happen right in here, maybe days 22 to 28. This is kind of where our PMS happens. This can be where the breast tenderness happens, the excessive menstruation, the back pain, the moodiness, lots of sweet cravings, because progesterone and cortisol play an intimate connection. LH and our GnRH play a connection with progesterone. And then the fasting has an effect on estrogen. So what's happening is more estrogen dominance, lower progesterone, cortisol imbalances, which can throw off our female cycle. It can make us feel moody. It can make us feel irritated. A lot of those PMS symptoms. So number one, intermittent fasting can have decent effects if, number one, that fasting period, that 12 to 8, let's say that 16/8 window that you're actually eating, the 8 hours you're eating, go back to my first video to get more info on that. That 8-hour window that you're eating, the 16-hour that you're fasting, if you're eating enough calories for your metabolic needs for the day, nutrient-dense, anti-inflammatory, low-toxin foods, that's a good thing. That may help you prevent a lot of these side effects to begin with if you are eating enough calories. The difference is women that are already kind of stressed, just skipping a meal may create a stressor that then starts to disrupt this feedback loop up top that starts to knock down that first domino. Decrease GnRH, okay? Decrease FSH, LH, okay? Estrogen, progesterone imbalance, that may be enough. So if you're stressed, if you already have a lot of issues, if you are more sensitive to skipping meals, if you already have a very sensitive cycle or a lot of PMS, I would hold off on doing intermittent fasting right now and work on getting the adrenals, getting the female hormones dialed in, making sure the thyroid's dialed in. That's step one. Step two, if your cycle's already good, maybe you want to try intermittent fasting, a 16/8, 16 fast, 8 eating, and just make sure you are getting an adequate amount of calories during that time frame. So it's kind of a caveat. I'm not saying it's good and bad. I'm saying how it can be disruptive. It typically is more disruptive when you're not eating enough calories, but that 16 hours may be disruptive enough if you have sensitive blood sugar issues to begin with. So female hormone cycle, we talked about it. Here's your ovulation. Here's your FS. Here's your follicular phase. Here's your luteal phase, okay? This is where estrogen dominates. This is where progesterone dominates. And I showed you here how that can all be thrown off with estrogen or with progesterone falling out early in this deficit phase. So number one, if you're having issues, click down below, schedule a consult with myself or my associates and we can dive in and help you figure that out. Number two, if you're already doing great, maybe you want to try this, go back and look at my other videos on this topic. We'll try to put above screen so you can click to access it easier. Number three, if you're enjoying this content, subscribe, share it. We really appreciate the increase in view count and getting this information out to help people that are in need. So again, fasting may be good for you, but if you're already having issues, if you're already more sensitive blood sugar wise, if you already have cold hands, cold feet, thyroid issues, mood issues, it may not be for you, and I explained why. And if you are gonna try it though, get stable first and do it the right way. Make sure that fasting period has an adequate amount of calories and thus nutrition as well. Again, this is Dr. J signing off. Have a great day.